about the Trump-Putin call. This is all people can talk about right now.
Putin is just buying time, because if he really wanted to agree, then he could have agreed to the 30-day ceasefire. The energy infrastructure won't have that kind of strategic importance until about October or November. I think suggests that there is an increasing risk for the negotiations to fail. If Putin doesn't agree on a compromise, then he would give Ukraine more arms than they have ever received.
India Today Global is at the Raisina Dialogue 2025, and with me is Csaba Barnabas Horvath. He's been someone who's been closely tracking the developments in Russia-Ukraine war. He brings a lot of credibility. He's a senior research fellow at Danube Institute. So thank you for joining us here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting.
All right. Now, because you have been tracking the war, I want to begin by asking you about the Trump-Putin call. This is all people can talk about right now. So can you help us understand what went down between the two leaders?
To me, it seems that Putin is just buying time, because if he really wanted to agree, then he could have agreed to the 30-day ceasefire. Instead, his promise not to attack Ukrainian energy infrastructure for 30 days seems to be just buying time, especially given the fact that the cold season, the heating season, is already over in Ukraine. So the energy infrastructure won't have that kind of strategic importance until about October or November.
All right. That's a very interesting point that you raised about the heating season and the requirement for energy for Ukraine. Now I want to go towards the negotiations and the role of Ukraine in it. How do you look at that? A lot of people are saying that Ukraine has not been a part of discussions as much as it should. And some people are saying that now, Ukraine does have a say. How do you look at that?
To me, it seems that the Jeddah talks seem to have been a turning point. That up until then, you could have said that Ukraine is rather on the table than around the table, but this seems to have changed with the Jeddah talks, where US and Ukraine agreed on certain terms and issued a call for Russia for the 30-day ceasefire, including the terms that the two of them have previously agreed.
All right. So you say that Ukraine is now around the table. I want to ask you, this table has been moving a lot because Donald Trump has been very fickle-minded towards United States policy towards Ukraine. We saw him calling off the aid. He's not going to share the intelligence, but then he went back on his decision and started sharing intelligence and also continued the aid. So how do you look at, United States policy towards Ukraine now?
To me, it seems that that most of those steps were rather just pressuring Ukraine to get closer to a compromise, because the US has retreated from most of those decisions. They resumed intelligence sharing, they resumed arms deliveries. And on the other hand, the proposal for a mineral deal signals to me a long-term US commitment on behalf of Ukraine.
Interestingly, you mentioned the mineral deal. So to ask you, and please tell our viewers as well, how crucial and critical these minerals are for the United States as it's trying to, reduce its reliance on China.
Well, these materials are crucial for electronics and high-tech industries. So we can call them strategic raw materials. And of course, Ukraine is not the only source where the US could diversify, but it's one of the major possible sources. So if such a mineral deal is reached, then by that the US ties itself to Ukraine, because it makes not being dependent on China, being dependent on its presence in Ukraine. So I think that would signal a long-term calculation.
All right. After the call between Trump and Putin, it was decided that White House will continue negotiations with Russia. I want to ask you, what do you think will be the demands put forward by the two parties here?
I have no idea about that, but the last rounds of the negotiations I think suggests that there is an increasing risk for the negotiations to fail, because like in certain ways both sides have added additional demands. For instance, Putin demanded for the 4 annexed regions to be recognized as part of Russia, which is a peculiar case, especially given the fact that Russia does not control all those regions. It almost controls one of the 4, but in case of the other 3, it controls only about 2/3 of each. So that demand would require Ukraine to give up territory, unilaterally give up territory that Russia couldn't manage to conquer for 3 years. While on the US side, President Trump raised the question of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and demanded it back for Ukraine, which on the other hand is a very tough demand opposed to Russia. So my feeling is that there is an increasing risk for the negotiations to fail.
All right, clearly the demands are challenging from both the sides, and complexities need to be worked out. My last question to you, Professor, you've already said that you think negotiations will fail.
I don't mean they will fail, but I think we can see an increasing risk.
Yeah, so then my last question to you is, how do you see this conflict coming to an end then?
Well, in his it's a very interesting case, because back in July 2023, Trump was asked on how would he force the parties to agree. And then he said that if Putin doesn't agree on a compromise, then he would give Ukraine more arms than they have ever received. And thinking about what could be the plausible plan B for Trump, that seems to be, although it's extreme, it still seems to be the least unlikely, because the other 2 options would be either simply drop Ukraine, let it down, but the minerals there suggest the contrary, or a third option could be to simply continue the policies of Biden, just prolonging the war, but that would go very much against the campaign promises of Donald Trump.
All right, either drop Ukraine, prolong the war, or arm Ukraine in a way that it has not been done before. These are the 3 options available on the table if the negotiations fail. Thank you so much for watching this. Stay tuned to India Today Global, where we simplify geopolitics for you.